Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Town of Islip Planning Board meeting for Wednesday, October 18, 2023. I'm going to ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah. Thank you. If you're here this evening for a public hearing and you'd like to speak, there are yellow cards at the table. When you come in, please fill one out and we'll call you up to speak during that. We remind members of the community to please keep your remarks to 3 minutes each. And I remind all applicants to please keep their presentations to 30 minutes or less. If you're here for item number 2 on the agenda, Jose Valverde, that will not be heard this evening. That has been adjourned. Likewise, if you're here for item number 8 on the agenda, EB at Vets Highway LLC, that's been adjourned, will not be heard. And if you're here for item number 10, Steel Campus LLC, that's also been adjourned and will not be heard this evening. First item on the agenda, 778 Montauk Highway LLC, SP 2022-018, southwest corner of Montauk Highway, 27A and West Bay Drive, West Islip, 778 Montauk Highway. Applicant requests parking, landscaping, buffer, and other site plan modifications in connection with the demolition of an existing restaurant and the construction of a new 2-story medical building. Good evening. Record, the mic on. The microphone. Hello? Hello?
We'll try that again. Evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Joseph F. Bazell. The firm is Bazell, Blander, and Visconti. We are located at 535 Broad Hollow Road, Suite B4 in Melville. The application tonight concerns site plan waivers regarding the redevelopment of a property which presently supports an abandoned restaurant with a new medical office building. The site is at 778 Montauk Highway in West Islip, which is the southwest corner of Montauk and West Bay Drive. It's about 450 feet west of the Good Samaritan Hospital. It's irregularly shaped in part due to a taking to widen Montauk Highway, and the widening created an irregular line on the northerly side, which dips into the property in the middle. It has about 194 feet of width. But again, the northern and southerly lines are irregular. It has 28,392 square feet of lot area. It formerly supported the Villa Monaco restaurant. The restaurant closed, and with the closure, the building and the site became vacant. As to the existing conditions, the building remains. It is largely 2 stories. It's set towards the rear. It was built around 1945. There was an addition to a restaurant in 1950, alterations in 60 and 81. The restaurant was expanded in 93, and fire damage was repaired in 95. There is little rear buffer between the building and the rear line. There are some plantings, but most of the area is taken up by a broken paver patio. As I understand it, when the restaurant operated, as is common, deliveries came in the rear and employees used the patio as a smoking area. On the northerly portion of West Bay Drive, between the existing building and West Bay, is parking. There are 2 full-service curb cuts, one in the middle and one on the east side. As the parking is largely on the west side, it makes it difficult to access. It's not a very smooth site design, no doubt aggravated by the taking. The front yard area is congested with 2 non-conforming parallel parking spaces between the curb cuts, and vehicles and customers all crowd into the small area to go to and from the site and the building. There's 1 handicap space. It's a parallel space at the sidewalk on the west side of the building. It requires a 3-point turn to pull in. It has limited parking, only about 18, 19 spaces, and which has forced restaurant parking to spill over onto the adjacent medical office building to the west. The refuse enclosure is 17 inches from the west line and less than 3 feet from the rear. Landscaping is limited, drainage and lighting non-conforming. The site is old, worn out of date, and in dire need of redevelopment. The property is in the medical service corridor of Montauk Highway in West Islip, which developed around the Good Samaritan Hospital. Again, the site's about 450 feet away from the hospital. Adjacent this site to the west is medical offices. Across West Bay Drive, medical offices. Across Montauk Highway, medical offices. And in fact, in about the half-mile run from the inlet to the west to the Robert Moses, aside from the St. John the Baptist High School and the Chappie Funeral Home and 1 or 2 houses, it's the hospital and medical offices. So having doctors near the hospital makes sense. Medical office is perfect for this property and it fits into the surrounding corridor. The site is a tight site to design. What we've done here is we put the building up front. Parking is to the west and into the rear. We got rid of the 2 bad curb cuts, put in a new single curb cut, which runs right into the parking area. There are 46 parking spaces, 2 are handicap. Handicap parking also an improvement. They're head-in parking right near the entrance, no need for a 3-point turn. We have a 20-foot rear buffer. It's actually wider on the westerly portion of the site. The refuse enclosure will be well away from all adjacent properties. In the most recent revision, we increased the buffer to 20 feet. We reduced the size of the building and we shifted the rear parking area. Landscaping will be increased from current conditions. This includes the 20-foot buffer in the rear, where you could see on the landscape plan, we're putting in a double row of plantings. Also, there's about 11 mature trees that we are leaving in place. We are putting landscaping in the area now on between the existing building and West Bay Drive, where there is parking. The landscape reduction on Montauk Highway is a product of the widening of Montauk Highway. The 4-foot distance number is at the narrowest point. And if you look at the site plan, you'll see the line runs in a dog leg. It dips into the site. It's at that dip that it's 4 feet. If you'll notice in front of the building, there's 10, 11 feet of landscaping. And there's also more landscaping on the westerly side of the curb cut and the easterly side of the building. Further, the DOT did not use all the land it took. The sidewalk is not adjacent to property, so there is additional landscape area that's actually located on the right-of-way. If the board has no questions, Wayne Muller from R&M Engineering is here to speak on traffic and parking.
Before you do that, did you have any renderings? Also, do you have a site plan that those from the community can see? There are a lot of people here on this application. I was wondering if they show that.
What I have with me is an 11 by 17.
Want to show them one of these? Do you want to take one of these? At least put it on the table if somebody wants to see it?
Sure.
Talking about it. Yeah. And then you can have your next speaker come up while, if anybody wants to take a look at that, they can.
Good evening, members of the chairman, members of the board. My name is Wayne Muller. I'm with Robinson and Muller Engineering. Our offices are at 50 Elm Street in Huntington, New York. As Mr. Brazel indicated, I'm here to primarily discuss the parking aspects of the proposed project. I believe my report was submitted to the board. It's dated October 17, 2023, and it contains the results of my analysis. As indicated by Mr. Brazel, it is proposed to construct a 774 square foot medical office building on the subject property. It involves the construction of a single curb cut on Montauk Highway located in the westerly portion of the site. Montauk Highway in the vicinity of the site is 1 lane in each direction with a center left turn lane, which allows vehicles to make a left in and a left out of the site. As indicated on the plans prepared by lab crew in accordance with the Town of Islip Code, The proposed project requires 50 parking spaces at the rate of 1 parking space for every 150 square feet. As depicted on the plans, 46 parking spaces are provided on the site, including 2 accessible spaces. This translates to a relaxation of 8%, so it's an 8% relaxation. However, we performed a parking analysis of the proposed medical office building using many different statistics. The first group of statistics that we utilized was contained in the Institute of Transportation Engineers Parking Generation Manual for medical office. We utilized both the average rate and the 85th percentile rate to be conservative. Utilizing those statistics in the most conservative, which would be the 85th percentile rate, we would anticipate 35 vehicles to be parked on the property during the peak time, and then that would translate to a 76% occupancy, leaving 11 parking spaces vacant. We also utilize statistics that my firm has compiled at 2 medical office facilities within the town of Islip. I believe they were both in Bayshore, and that analysis was performed for 200 Colton Avenue, which was the old marketing building, which received approval from this board to convert that building into medical office. And what we studied was the facility at 39 Brentwood Road and also at 380 Main Street, which are both medical office buildings. We found that using those statistics, it would result in a maximum of a 67% occupancy utilizing the observations that we performed on Brentwood Road, and to a 57% occupancy utilizing the statistics that we compiled at 380 Main Street. So basically, using national statistics and localized parking generation data, we believe that there will be adequate parking provided on the property. We also believe that by removing 2 curb cuts that currently exist on Montauk Highway, we eliminate possible conflict points and with one driveway located on the westerly portion of the site, which in my opinion will adequately service the traffic in and out of the proposed medical office building. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Just a quick question, if you can come back to it, but when you did your comparison, do you know what type of medical offices or medical uses are going in there? Because obviously some are much more, bringing a lot more people per hour, and some bring in less depending on what service they're providing. And my second question would be to that is it a single tenant, multiple tenants?
The principal of 778 is a plastic and reconstructive surgeon. Could you give me a little bit? The principal of 778 is a plastic and reconstructive surgeon. His current office is on Jericho Turnpike in East Northport. He does a lot of work in the Good Samaritan Hospital. It's likely there would be one other tenant in the building, but there has been no lease or anything in that regard yet because we still don't have a building permit.
Thank you. I have more questions after, but thank you.
The statistics that we used that were local were multi-tenant buildings. I think they were Northwell buildings, but they had multiple different doctors in them. And the national statistics, I don't know, but I believe that they're multi-tenant buildings. But I did represent Dr. De Silva in Huntington, and he did receive a parking variance. No, he did not receive a variance there, but because their code is 1 space for every 225 square feet. I did have the opportunity to send one of my staff over to the building, at which point I think it's 5,600 square feet, and he had 18 vehicles parked at maximum. However, first floor of that building, it contains a physical therapy office, which may have tended to lower the ratios a little bit.
And that was my point of it, is depending on who's going in there, obviously, and what you look at for a study. Some are much more intensive use, some are less intense, but we can drill into that a little further later.
But again, it's an 8% relaxation.
Thank you.
Fairly low when it comes to
So, thank you.
In Islip's parking requirements for medical office are high. They are the highest that I've dealt with. I've been in every town on Long Island, 62 villages and 2 cities. I can't say I've done medical offices in all, but 1 to 150 is a high number, so you're starting at a high threshold. Babylon's 1 to 200. And doctors' offices today, having been dealing with them a lot this year, the appointments are very tightly controlled. The desire is not to have patients waiting in the waiting room. So people come and people go in a much quicker, more orderly fashion than in days gone by. Medical office is clearly compatible with the surrounding Montauk Highway corridor. The Villa Monaco reflected a different era. The incidents of operation for a restaurant and a medical office are vastly different. Medical space is quiet. There's no music, no food odors, no food deliveries. There's no food refuse. And again, we are putting the refuse in a new location set back from the property lines. Medical offices may have evening hours or hours on Saturday, but different from a restaurant, which has people come and go well into the night. And not every medical office these days is occupied or fully occupied even every day, as doctors do move between different locations. There will be new drainage, lighting will be code compliant. Proximity to the Good Samaritan Hospital helps maintain adequate medical care, particularly in emergency situations. This is a very positive redevelopment of the property, a vast improvement over existing conditions, and firmly in character with the surrounding area.
Thank you. We'll go to public hearing, staff report, and we'll come back for questions.
Okay.
Mr. Brown?
John Davis?
Good evening. John Davis, President Willets Point Association, P.O. Box 55, West Islip, New York. Our association is just one parcel to the west of this, where it begins on Secretary Lane at Montauk Highway, and it runs down to the bay and the intersecting side streets in the Willets Point area. The property in question adjoins one of our members on the southwest side. And one concern, and we haven't talked about it yet, is the present condition of the property is honestly just disgraceful. We have seen several properties on Montauk Highway redeveloped in the last few years under the GST zoning, and I believe this is GST zoning. And the results there have been good, very good. The most recent one is at 722 Montauk Highway, just one block to the west. That one replaced an older structure. They built a very attractive one-story building, and it maintains a residential character. The big difference here is the proposed building is 2 stories, while other buildings I refer to are 1 story. What concerns us here is who the owners will be, only because the current owners have let this property fall into really blighted conditions with no regard for the neighbors. In fact, they only cut the tall weeds down about a month or so ago, probably anticipating hearings. If the ownership remains the same, how would we be assured this property will be properly maintained? Another thing we're always concerned about is that it might be swallowed up by the CHS system and become a tax-exempt property like so many other properties nearby. If we could be assured that a conforming building with a residential exterior design is what we're going to get, we haven't seen any illustrations of building whatsoever. That would be very helpful. If the buffers and landscaping are suitable, we might well be able to support the application. Possibly we could meet with the architect or the attorney or somebody who could show us renderings of what is actually going to be built there. I think that would make a huge difference. Also, I'm here on behalf of the West Islip Association because the president and vice president were unavailable tonight. They had some questions they sent to me, some of which have already been answered, so we'll skip those. One topic we all have, and I'm going to let other people here address it because I know they want to, is the traffic in that area. Parking you've addressed already. I don't think there's any discussion of the height of the building, but then again, we haven't seen any renderings on the building, so we don't know that. Hours of operation, I believe you did discuss. Is there any business relationship between the new owner or the new physicians coming in and the hospital? Are they affiliated? Is it going to be a Good Samaritan hospital?
Ms. Davis, you
I
can
think that
continue.
pretty much covers everything.
You're representing two organizations. If you want to continue, feel free to finish.
I think we've got it. One question that they also asked is if it's a two-story building, can it resemble something such as the Marowella Dermatology building on the corner of Pat Drive and Montauk Highway, which as a two-story building is rather attractive. The other buildings nearer to this that have been built recently are one-story. So I think that sums it up. I know there are a lot of other people here, and I will let them address other topics. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ryan Brannigan.
We're going to start. Good evening. My name is Brian Brannigan. I'm the president of the Babylon Beach Estates Association of West Islip. We are the closest association to the west of Good Samaritan project. This application falls to the directly connecting us to the west of our property as well. We run all the way from Montauk Highway down to the bay. It's routinely called the Bay Streets. I can sit here and talk a lot about feelings and opinions, but I want to bring a couple of facts that recently came to light. The Babylon Beach Estates is currently, I can't go around the town of Islip. I can't actually walk around Suffolk County without most people asking me about the current conditions of 46 members that have negatively affected damage to homes with the Good Samaritan construction project that this planning board approved. People in my neighborhood don't even think that not only can this planning board approve this site, the engineering and building department can't regulate what happens when this rip down happens right next to one of our residents that's a part of our community. In all good intentions, you probably approved the Good Samaritan project, but with the damage of the homes to our house during that construction, there was no confidence in the town of Islip being able to regulate this project, never mind regulate what's going on at Good Samaritan Hospital. I would like to submit to you, not only do we have parking issues, we have construction workers parking. Our residents can't even park in front of their own homes. You approve a plan, and then the state has to deal with it on the state level of Montauk Highway. And then they have issues with traffic studies. With all due respect to this gentleman, last night, Angie Carpenter, our town supervisor, presented me with a letter that she wrote to Richard Corson, who is the regional director of the New York State Department of Transportation, asking for another traffic study. The traffic study that was done for the Good Samaritan Hospital project was done during periods of time, during COVID, whatnot, and it didn't prove the true issues that our residents are under. So not only did Angie Carpenter ask for a new traffic study, she got a letter back from the gentleman. I'll give it to you guys. You can have a copy. She made it for me. And they're going to do a new traffic study. But now we also, got an email today from Assemblyman Michael Durso, State Senator Alexis Week, and Assembly Member Jared Gandolfo. They also are requesting a new traffic study in our area. Basically, when you put all these pieces of paper together, they're requesting a new traffic study from Secatog Lane all the way to Senecor. Secatog on the west of the hospital to Senecor on the east of the hospital. This application is right on West Bay Drive. It's going to create more issues for us. We're not, these things can't be looked at in a vacuum. They have to be looked at wholly. There's accidents everywhere. It's a safety issue. West Islip has to, and if I could just finish, West Islip has to not force to choose the best worst option. That's how my members feel. It's always the best worst option. And the thought of the people in West Islip is they should change, like this gentleman said, they should change the signs, welcome to West Islip, nothing personal, just medical. If that's what this board is after, that's what you're right there at that goal. Nothing personal, just medical. It's destroying the feel of West Islip, all these corporate buildings. Never mind John Davis saying they're turning these buildings they're coming off the tax rolls. There's 9 properties. They buy something, the hospital and somebody gets conglomerated up and it goes off the tax roll. And the people of West Islip school district taxes, we all know what goes on. Who's forced to take that burden? West Islip has had enough. We're pro-hospital, we're pro-medical, we're pro-giving Suffolk County town residents state-of-the-art medical, but we are not pro-quality of life. This is affecting our kids, it's safety, everyone is passing the buck from state to town, and I appreciate the extra time. I'm asking for your help. I didn't come up here to be argumentative. I'm asking for your help and to actually look at this in a totality circumstance because we need your help. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Richard Thompson.
Good evening, Rich Thompson. I live at 455 Bay 4th Street in West Islip. I thank you, members of the board, for letting me speak. I live in the same neighborhood with Brian. I'll take it a step further. I think you should consider renaming the town of West Islip to the town of Good Samaritan Hospital. We lived here 30 years, and as this gentleman has said, it is a new era. Little Monaco is from the old era. This is the new era, and as he said, it's a vast improvement. It's all about perspective, though. From the perspective of the people who live there, it's not a vast improvement. It's a bastardization of our town. This is ridiculous. When that hospital was approved, they made promises to us. There'd be no increases in the traffic. It's a mess getting out of there. They changed our traffic pattern. We come out of East Bay, you can't make a left turn anymore. So if you want to go west, you got to go all the way through the neighborhoods, down Bay 5th, through Second to get out. I'm sure those neighbors love the extra traffic. The people who aren't going to be able to park because there's not enough parking for this new medical building, they're going to park on West Bay in front of all the neighbors' homes. Nobody's going to stop that. The construction that was done at Good Sam, they told us we're good neighbors. This is good for everybody. It's good for the community. Don't worry, we're going to be good for you. Well, it hasn't been good for us. The construction is destroyed. Some houses worse than others, 30 or 40 homes. And they're not doing a damn thing about it. They don't care. We got one resident, the second floor of his house is shifted 2 inches, a relatively new home. And they come around, they take pictures. Oh, yeah, we'll fix it. Oh, yeah, it's all promises. It's all crap. Nobody's doing anything. And now we're going to get more promises. And nobody trusts anybody. We don't trust. You folks are supposed to represent us, not the hospital. I have nothing personal against the man who's trying to get a variance and make a building that's conducive to his livelihood. But there's no guarantee that that's not going to be swallowed up by Good Sam. Just like if you're familiar with Montauk Highway, you look down every one of those buildings, those medical buildings, it's like dominoes falling. They're all getting swallowed up by Good Sam. Every one of them. And the tax base diminished. And I'm familiar with tax assessments. What happens when you lose the taxes? It gets redistributed. Everybody else, we all pay just a little bit more. And we think we won't notice it, but we notice it. This isn't West Islip. This is a mess. The traffic is terrible, and it's a disgrace. I know that Alexa Week has sponsored legislation from the state to change the tax status of more property. The hospital's buying residences, getting them off the tax rolls. And like I said, this is going to be the new town of Good Samaritan Hospital, because it's not ours. It's so different. And as far as safety, I was in an accident on Montauk Highway. I was T-boned by a nurse running the light at 5 p.m. Boom. That was before all this happened. It's only going to get worse. Every year, some student is hit by a car walking across the West Islip High School. It's only going to get worse. I think that's everything I wanted to say. Again, it's not personal, but I think this is a mistake. You got to do something. You got to look into pulling the permits on the hospital until they correct what they've done to these homes, and resist adding more medical offices to that area. Yeah, it's the hospital quadrangle, whatever it is. I didn't grow up. This isn't Great Neck, but I've got a cruise ship permanently parked, permanently docked on Montauk Highway, and the traffic that runs through all the time to the parking lot. It's ridiculous. It really has just changed the neighborhood in a bad way. Again, it's all perspective, but that's our perspective. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Those are all the cards I have. Did anyone come in later wish to be heard on the application? Not seeing anyone, I'm going to turn to Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This GST zoned over half-acre site is currently improved with the vacant former Villa Monaco restaurant. That building was built around 1900, had various additions over the years, fire damage repair, a change of zone from Residence A and AA to GST in 1993 to legalize and expand that restaurant that is under TC 4046, and ultimately a certificate of compliance in 1995. The proposal before the board tonight is the demolition of that restaurant and complete reconfiguration of the existing site in terms of parking, buffer, etc. The existing building is approximately 8,700 square feet, and the new medical office will be approximately 7,500 square feet. The operation will be the relocated office of a medical surgeon who is affiliated with Good Samaritan Hospital nearby. The existing buffer is quite minimal, as little as a few feet in some locations, contains broken patio and minimal growth, and is now being proposed at 20 feet at the narrowest point. This buffer was also increased from the originally proposed just under 15 feet, which also coincided with a reduction in the proposed building size, so that was reduced from the original proposal. 2 full-service curb cuts on Montauk Highway will be removed, and 1 will be provided on the west side of the property. In terms of parking, only a 4-stall relaxation is required, and the site is increasing the parking on site from around 17 or 18 stalls to 46. The existing refuse enclosure, which is less than 2 feet from the side and rear property lines, will be fully compliant and relocated outside that 25-foot buffer. Overall landscaping on site may be increasing, however, is still deficient. There's a 20% requirement and just over 14% is provided, and the front yard landscaping requirement is met. Staff will need to analyze the existing figures versus the proposed and compare to any approved site plans on file to determine if a landscape mitigation fee is required. Variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals will be required for floor area ratio as well as a front yard setback to Montauk Highway. At this time, staff would defer to the applicant so we can answer some questions and comments from the public as well as any board members.
Thank you. So, can you, a couple of questions. First is height, the current height of the building to what you're proposing.
It's height compliant. The exact design of the building is still being worked out with engineering and site.
I understand it's height compliant. My baseline question is the current height of the building to the height you're proposing. Is it less or more?
No variance is necessary in connection with height. That I know.
Understand that. It's not my question.
I don't have the most recent building plans. The architect has been in communication with engineering. I know that he is still receiving comments and still making revisions. The only thing I do know is there's no height variance required.
Currently. And the code is?
The code's 35.
Okay, so your new building is proposing is 30 feet.
If Tanner says it's 30 feet, I'll go with Tanner.
And do we know the height of the current Villa Monaco?
35.
It's not on there. Okay.
It's higher than that.
And then talk to me about the rear buffer. I mean, we're going up against residences.
Yeah,
the
it's
requirement. I understand it's 20 feet, but it's still shy.
It's 20 feet for most of its run. It's wider on the westerly portion.
I can see that.
The lot's a little deeper. And if you look at the landscape plan, I don't know if that's what you have open, but
I've seen it.
the landscape plan, you'll see there's a double row of plantings on the east side, and then there's a gap between them. In that gap, those light circles are existing mature trees which are being retained. And then you'll see more plantings and then a double row of plantings on the westerly side. So its quality is being added to the area in addition to depth. 20 feet is still a good buffer. This is not a deep piece of property. It's not a huge piece of property. And there is no buffer there now. Also, the building gives more rear yard setback than the existing Villa Monaco restaurant. You're going up to 82.5 feet here, which is a big increase from like the 35 feet that the Villa Monaco is. And there's no rear yard activity. Nothing happens in that buffer, but it's a buffer. So in the existing conditions, you have a brick paver patio back there. So what you're seeing improvement in the rear buffer is in terms of a 20-foot planted buffer with double plantings and preserving mature trees. You're providing further setback to the building. The only thing in between is parking. There's no rear yard activity on this site. And we're also moving the refuse enclosure, which was close to the rear and westerly lines on the west side of the property, is also being pushed away. So all of those things, and of course, all lighting would be code compliant, all drainage would be code compliant as well. So I think the effect is a major improvement to the properties to the rear. And we have front landscaping wrapping around the corner on West Bay Drive, where right now between the Villa Monaco restaurant and West Bay on the front portion is parking area.
Is your client the current owner of the property, or they?
No, he bought the property after the restaurant closed.
So he's had it for this time. And the reason I raised that, and you can check me consistently saying this, is not maintaining the property while it's sitting there to say we'll improve it only if you approve us, is not the way we like to operate either.
He's
still in West Lights. I drive by there often. I've seen the property.
He's a doctor. He got a notification that the grass had to be cut. He cut the grass. People were dumping on the property, and he put up fencing. I think when you look at the property, I've certainly seen worse properties in my days, but the only really way to clean this property is to redevelop it. If there's no piles of garbage on the property, it doesn't look good. I'll be honest.
At the end of the day, if you own a piece of property, you should maintain the piece of property. And we can go, it's not worse than the one 5 streets away. It's still not in good condition. I don't want to have that argument with you. If it's not in good condition, it's not in good condition. I'm going to turn to Mr. Brown, then I'll have some other comments.
Yeah. The one thing I see, the square footage of the existing building that's there is 80 some odd square foot, and you're going down to 7,500 square feet.
Let me look at the site plan. I think that's what exists. Yes, slightly under 7,500.
You're reducing 1,200.
74 and change.
Building, and you have nothing here architecturally that we could look at, see what it would look like. As Mr. Davis,
the design of the building continued to change a number of times. Part of the concern would be, how would this board view the waivers, and how would zoning board view the setbacks? Because we don't meet the setbacks on either street. And if you have to change the building, then it's a complete architectural redo.
right. One suggestion I would have is that
It is general service T, and they do have to comply with general service T
Yes.
requirements.
right. One suggestion I would have is maybe community outreach, to have a meeting where you could show the architectural and the people that are here tonight.
Look, I don't have a problem with that.
No, I think absolutely. You're reducing the size of the property, and they are the ones who would have to live with you and know what type of neighbor you're going to be, or your client's going to be, and what you're doing in the building and everything. So I would suggest that.
I don't have a problem with a community meeting. I've had numerous ones in my life. My worst experience is when they threw food at me. I don't think these people will throw food at me.
I wouldn't count that out. But I would like to see the architecture myself too.
Are there further questions from the board? So I would just say this, Mr. Bazell. I mean, I know you need other setbacks you don't meet the requirements of. There's also the option of reducing the building smaller as well, bringing the square footage down.
We did reduce the building already.
I know, but what you came with originally should not have even been proposed for that piece of property, in my opinion. The size of it.
From what my client says, if the building gets smaller, he'll put it back. The economics no longer work. He'd have to put it on the market. Because there is a lot of money in terms of removing the existing building and rebuilding the entire site. Not simply the building, but all the site improvements.
My suggestion would be, as what Mr. Brown said, you really need to meet with the community. There is still a residential feel. The properties on the north side of Montauk Highway that have been building further back, I was opposed to those, voted against those for the reason of what some of the community members said. It's losing the feel of West Islip as becoming a medical office corridor. What the building looks like makes a difference. how the building operates, who the tenants are. I mean, Villa Monaco is a longstanding restaurant there in West Islip. There are issues with them having the outside behind there and late at night and what have you with the community. But you really need to take time to meet with the community. There are concerns that they raised are valid. I share some of those same concerns that they have in terms of the continued expansion. It may be a way to make it work. Mr. Davis talked about architecture, residential look, the
But
size and the rest.
that's general service T. That you have to comply with general service T rules no matter what. It is general service T. I mean,
aware of
this site is I've seen that Good Samaritan Hospital addition. My mother's been in that hospital. It's massive. This is a drop in the bucket, and pretty much every property on that corridor now is medical office. For the record, the only connection between this application and the hospital is the fact that the doctor works at the hospital. The hospital itself has no interest or part in the application, nor does Catholic Health Services have any interest or part in the application.
I would just say, looking at the elevation that's been submitted, it does not look like residential. It does not look like a general service T. It looks,
As I said, it's still in process. It has to be finalized.
I'm going to turn to Mr. Frugieri and then I'll wrap it up with a last comment.
Yeah, I would concur with my board members, fellow board members here, that you really should do some community outreach and show the community this plan. Because I'm seeing this plan for the first time tonight, and I see some positive things here. I mean, you've gotten rid of, from a traffic standpoint, to what I always considered dangerous curb cuts, and you relocated it further from an intersection, which from a traffic standpoint is a positive thing. You've gotten rid of the parking up front and have beautiful greenery along Montauk Highway, which is part of the character that we're losing in West Islip as more and more businesses have these big parking areas right up front. Also, I live in the West Islip community and can attest to the traffic problems on Montauk Highway. It's not just related to Good Sam. Good Sam is part of it. You got St. John the Baptist and you got the West Islip High School. All of their peak trip generation occurs at the same time. It occurs at that 7 o'clock hour in the morning when everyone's rushing to the hospital, rushing to the high school, and the buses are going to St. John's. So whatever goes there, if the Villa Monaco is going to remain here, or another restaurant that was even more intensive than Villa Monaco is going to come here, that this board doesn't even get to see that application, that's going to contribute to the traffic problems. A medical office, though, especially this type of medical office, may be something that helps in this situation, because you don't have that huge peak hour of traffic. You have cars and patients coming dribs and drabs throughout the day. That's my thought. I'd like to see your traffic engineer address that, to show the type of use that's being proposed and how that impacts the traffic with the current traffic situation on is that an accurate statement? I mean,
Yes, but we have not performed the traffic analysis in that capacity. Our analysis was strictly relegated to the parking because this is a permitted use within the zone. That is some information that we could provide to the board, but we have not performed those studies at this point.
well, this is a permitted use in the zone. The only reason why it's here is for a couple of variances.
Correct.
If you fully complied with the code, this application wouldn't be before us tonight.
Absolutely correct.
So there's other uses like a restaurant
Yes.
or more intense medical use that moves into that same building and could operate and be worse from a traffic standpoint than maybe what the proposed use is. What I'm
Absolutely.
saying, when you do your community outreach, I would do a traffic study that compares this use to other potential uses, so we can get to see that and the community gets to see that. And then show the community your plan, your elevations, and that sort.
Yeah, that's something we definitely could put together. We have not at this point, though.
After we leave, I'm happy to give my contact information to anybody who wants it. I'm happy to take the information of anybody who wants to give it to me, and we can set up a community meeting.
I think that's a very smart idea.
You could probably go through Mr. Davis, who represents tonight two of the community organizations in West Islip.
Mr. Brannigan as well, yeah. You have several people
Mr.
you can.
Brannigan, that
yeah.
was,
And so why don't you speak to them? I'd like to hear more community feedback. I'd also like to see elevations, and have more of a discussion. There's really not much tonight to look at and make a decision on. Anything further from the board? Anything further from the applicant?
I think that does it.
Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
I'm going to
Brown.
make a motion that we close this public hearing and reserve decision.
Motion by Mr. Brown to close the public hearing, reserve decision. Is there a second?
I'll second.
By Mr. Ruggieri, all in favor? Opposed? We're reserved. Thank you. And Mr. Zell, you're going to stay up here. I'm just going to do number 9. Oh,
No, it's Mr. I'm not on number 9.
We ask you to just go right outside the hall because we're going to continue with our next hearing.
Oh, wait a second. Okay. I'm going to go right to number 9, Wayne, if that's yours. It's Town Board Application 660 Motor Realty LLC CZ 2021-024, south side of Motor Parkway, County Route 67, 200 feet west of Brentwood Parkway, Hauppauge, 660 Motor Parkway. Applicant requests to change the zone from Business 1 to Business 3 and a Town Board special permit for a fast food restaurant pursuant to 68-302G. Site plan modifications are requested as part of the application. Applicant further requests a waiver of the 40,000 minimum lot area requirement for a fast food restaurant.
And for the record, excuse me, Wayne Muller, Robinson and Muller Engineering. Office is at 50 Elm Street, Huntington, New York. With me this evening is Tahir Qureshi from Long Island Engineering and Architecture, who prepared the site plans. I believe we have responded to all of the town's comments in regards to traffic, parking, and queuing. And all that information is reflected on the last revised plans. The applicant has signed the covenants and restrictions, and I believe he transmitted the signed copy to Mr. Colgan. At this point, I don't have anything else to say.
Why don't I go to Mr. Colgan for a report? If we have questions, we'll come back to you. Mr. Colgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This application was previously heard at the February 8th hearing. Since that time, Suffolk County had reviewed the access points on the site plan and requested that the entrance and the exit points be separated. This required significant modifications to the site plan, including a decrease in the number of viable parking spaces and drive-through stacking. Since the site is substandard for fast food restaurants and did not meet parking standards from the Institute of Transportation Engineers, staff had asked the applicant to review other Popeyes locations to verify they can safely operate below the IT standards. The supplementary review identified reduced parking generation for use of the site as a Popeyes restaurant. The town's traffic consultant reviewed the submission and stated that the data provided in the submission is potentially only relevant to Popeyes restaurants in Suffolk County. Therefore, use of the site as a different type of fast food restaurant could generate greater parking and traffic demand in the proposed Popeyes. It is recommended that if any relaxation of transportation-related town standards is granted, use of the site should be restricted to a Popeyes restaurant. So if you look at the attached covenants and restrictions, it limits the use of the property to a Popeyes restaurant with a requirement that any change in tenancy require a review of 3 other sites operated by the subsequent franchise to demonstrate that the site can support a different type of fast food restaurant. Just to be clear for the record, this recommendation is not an endorsement or based on a preference for Popeyes, but strictly on the traffic impacts raised by the town's traffic consultant and the acknowledgement that different franchises are likely to have different impacts. Therefore, the staff recommends the board grant the application subject to the attached covenants and restrictions.
Thank you, Ms. Colgan. And you guys are okay with all those suggested outlined? Are there any further questions from the board? Any further from the applicant?
Nothing.
Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
I'd
Brown.
like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to grant the application subject to the covenants and restrictions that were outlined.
It's a motion by Mr. Brown to grant the application subject to the covenants and restrictions. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Cruz. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? The application is granted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Going back to item 3 on the agenda, Douglas Acker, PB 2023-031, east side of Morgan Lane, 398 feet south of Middle Road, Bayport, 9 Morgan Lane. Applicant requests a modification of planning board conditions from the 1978 final resolution of Morgan's Cove, Bayport, regarding encroachment within a conservation easement. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Nick Pfluger of Boulder Pfluger Architects, 85 East Main Street, Bayshore, New York, 11706. I'm here to answer any questions that the board may have, but I'm going to first hand it over to the homeowner, Doug Acker, to speak about the application. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. My name is Douglas Acker. I'm the owner of 9 Morgan Lane, Bayport, New York. The application concerns clearing of vegetation in a conservation easement area. So just a little history. I just recently purchased this house. We first looked at it in April of 2022 upon learning it was for sale. I actually lived across the street at 1 Morgan Lane for 20 years. At that time, when we looked at it, the area in the southeast corner was mostly wood chips, as indicated in time-stamped Google Earth images, as well as images used in the marketing of the property on various realtor websites, which I submitted to Tanner, and I believe he's distributed to you. We were aware of the amount of I'm sorry. So there were a couple of trees in the area with the wood chips, and we were aware of the amount of bamboo in the backyard, but at the time it seemed relatively contained and was a safe distance from the deck and the house. This being the first time we saw the property, we were not aware of a history of vegetation and of any land clearing that took place. After going into contract in May 2022, we returned to the property and were shocked by the amount of bamboo we observed. The new growth was astonishing. There were new bamboo shoots everywhere. Bamboo shoots were coming up through the wood chips. They were in the lawn. They had completely destroyed a brick patio on the south side of the house, and they had made their way up to and under the deck. I also submitted pictures of the deck showing the bamboo coming through the wood. We brought this to the attention of the realtor and our attorney, and at that time we were advised to solicit estimates for the removal of the bamboo. After receiving 2 estimates, both in the 35 to 40,000 range, we negotiated a seller's concession in the amount of $20,000 to be used to offset the cost of the removal, as this was something that was utterly shocking and unexpected for us. Between May and when we closed on the property in September of 2022, the bamboo continued to grow unabated. Upon taking ownership of the home in September, we hired a bamboo removal expert to properly remove the bamboo, inclusive of the entire root system. During this work, we discovered the few remaining trees in the wood chip area were compromised. They were buried in the wood chips, and as a result, they were suffering from fungal root rot. These trees had to be removed as a result of the damage caused by the piling of the wood chips. As a result of removing the bamboo root system, we did have to bring in local clean fill to bring the grade of the property back to its original height, as the bamboo root system requires excavation down some 3 feet from the current level. Since we have 2 dogs, we chose to install a new black chain link fence. We elected to install the fence well within the property line, as we don't want our dogs having access to the remaining bamboo forest in the backside of the property. Inside the perimeter of the fence, after the remediation work, we planted new vegetation. We planted 14 arborvitae along the north side, 25 skip laurels around the eastern side, and a mix of 10 skip laurels and 22 emerald green giants along the south side of the property. Additionally, we planted 3 Coosa dogwood trees in the area where the damaged trees were removed. We also planted 2 arborvitae and 1 cryptomeria in the area in front of the utility pole that's in the southeast corner of the property. Unfortunately, the cryptomeria did not take and died. We plan on replacing it with the southern magnolia, Bracken's Brown Beauty. We also had the conference with the DEC concerning the wetlands, the freshwater wetlands that required us to obtain a permit from the DEC for a potential garage extension we plan on doing. The DEC did in fact grant that permit. I did go to a compliance conference at the DEC's office to discuss the vegetation clearing, and based on that conversation and the DEC's final determination, the only area that they wanted additional work done was for us to remove wood chips in a small area directly in front of the pond. The pond is not part of my property, but it comes up to and is very close to my property line. So in that area where we removed the bamboo, we had filled in with wood chips. They've asked that we remove approximately 5 feet from the water's edge of those wood chips by a width of approximately 20 feet. They did ask that upon removal, we plant native plants. They suggested several, of which we decided button bush would be what we prefer to put in there, which was one they recommended. They just requested that they be spaced no more than 5 feet apart and fill that area. Just so you understand, the bamboo removal work was not something we planned on, and it wasn't by choice. It was out of necessity to save my home. The bamboo is like insanely overgrown in this yard. It still remains. There's an enormous amount of it as can be seen on the updated survey that we obtained that does show vegetation. We plan on leaving that area. We had no intentions of disturbing it. We understand the conservation easement was developed with a desire to keep the nature of the area intact for it to be enjoyed, and we very much enjoy the nature. That's why I chose to move across the street. We didn't have any plans on moving, but when learning of the availability of the house, the privacy in the backyard were what we jumped on. The bamboo is not what we planned for. So the area, though, that was cleared the most was cleared by the previous owner prior to me taking ownership of the property. That's the one thing I want just to make sure that is understood. And the Google Earth images from 2021 in April show the area still green. And then in April 2022, which is prior to the house being listed for sale, you can see that area now has a yellowish orange look. That's the wood chips, or yellow tan rather. That's the area that was cleared. And I do actually, in fact, know that the previous owner, Phil Murphy, had unfortunately got sick with cancer and wasn't able to travel as much as he used to. And I was told by his girlfriend, Carol, they cleared that area so that he could enjoy the nature, his backyard from the deck in his final days. So I do understand the background of when the vegetation was cleared, but it was nothing that I knew of as it relates to the conservation easement and what is and isn't allowed. For me and what we did, it was a matter of just restoring the property and cleaning up the mess that was left as the root system wasn't removed. All they did was chop everything down and leave an enormous pile of wood chips in that southeast corner, which is clearly evidenced on the Google Earth imagery, as well as some of the still shots I submitted from the original MLS Rico virtual tour that the realtor had put on the internet. I do believe that is the extent of my presentation here.
I'm going to go to Mr. Gonzalez. I have no cards. Did anybody come in who wish to be heard on this? Not seeing anyone, I'm going to go to Mr. Gonzalez for a report. We'll come back for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a Res AA zone property, almost an acre, currently improved with a single-family dwelling, CO'd in 1987. It is lot number 2 on the map of Morgan's Cove. Lots 2 through 6 on the easterly and southerly side of Morgan Lane are restricted by a conservation easement that runs along the rear of each property. This appears to have been put in place to protect Homan's Creek that runs to the south. It was spoken about by the property owner, but I'll just give a brief synopsis of the timeline of events. April of 21 to April of 22, the prior owner began clearing into the conservation easement. Most of the area was purportedly bamboo, which was run through a wood chipper, then dispersed back onto the property in excess of 18 inches high in certain areas. This appears to have been done in an effort to increase the size of usable space in the rear yard before the owner sold the home. In May of 22, the current owner went into contract and visited the property again, and as he attested, saw the bamboo regrowing through the wood chip piles underneath the rear yard wood deck, uprooting of a brick patio on the side of the house, and growing through the lawn. They entered into negotiations with the seller on concessions for bamboo removal. And then until September of 22, when he took over the property, the bamboo continued to grow unmitigated. Several remaining trees were now suffering from the fungal root rot due to being buried in the wood chips. And that is when the current owner hired a bamboo removal expert to remove the issue, inclusive of the root system and the dead trees. The current owner applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals and obtained a side yard setback variance for an addition to the existing garage and a driveway variance in May of 23. That is ZBA number 36123. Subsequently, they applied to the New York State DEC for a wetlands permit and a Town of Islip building permit for the garage addition this past summer. It is at that time that the New York State DEC sent notice to the Town of Islip based on aerial photography. Clearing within the conservation easement had been done. The current status of the DEC involvement has been a directive for removal of all wood chips, various wetland planting restoration, and bamboo maintenance in the area that can be done when necessary. A new black chain link fence was constructed, as well as new arborvitae and deciduous trees, which the DEC has no issue with. At this time, staff has created an approximate markup, which you have before you right now, comparing the prior tree line versus the existing clearing line. So this is based on videos that were sent in, aerial photography from the applicant as well as the DEC. So right now, there are 4 other lots on the block that have the same conservation easement. So I would see if the board has any comments or, preference for conditions that be put together.
Any questions from the board? I have a comment.
What?
My only question is, it was obviously an invasive species, so it was removed for that reason. I think it differentiates from everybody else going in there and clearing it, so I'm okay with that. You're gonna follow what the DEC has recommended. I just want to clear with Tanner that I'm noticing here that it's not part of this, but part of the deck goes into the conservation. We're not talking about that this evening. We're just talking about,
It's both. So it's just the total. So that was part of the original house when it was built. So it may have just been an oversight when the CO was issued on the house. It's kind of hard to tell if it was slightly added to after the house was built in 87. The masonry patio, to my knowledge, and the applicant can speak on this, is no longer there on the side of the house.
It's gone.
It's gone, so that's not encroaching anymore. But there's a couple corners on the wood deck that are technically over the line, which are essentially been there since, what I can tell, since the house was built and CO'd. And they were never encroaching into any wooded area. There was, as you can see on the markup, that red line on the markup is essentially where the lawn was. So it's not as if the conservation easement was fully wooded. It still had yard space around the wood deck.
so my only question is the deck. What I'm looking at here shows that was submitted originally, does not have the deck going on to into the conservation easement. No, sorry. I'm okay with certainly the clearing and the building back to the DEC. I just want to understand.
If I may, I would say that the deck is definitely original to the house because the cedars is rotted through completely in spots. And honestly, there is absolutely no seams that would indicate somebody had altered it post CO. I think that might even be visible in a couple of pictures I had sent with the deck.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you have any plans to, since it's rotted through, to make any alterations to it?
No, well, only to replace the cedar, not to change the shape or size of it. And no immediate plans, by the way.
Want to clarify that.
While they're reviewing that, I'd like to ask you one question. When you had your professional bamboo remover remove the bamboo that you took off your property, there's still a lot of bamboo that's still there. Did he put an underground barrier so that doesn't move into your property?
Yes,
Okay,
we did.
all right,
The
That would
bamboo
work.
barrier follows the black chain link fence.
okay.
Yeah, I don't want to ever go through that again.
No.
Yeah.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
If you do it that way, I'm fine with it.
Explain it first.
I'm going to turn to Mr. Frugier. Anything further you want to add?
Not at this time.
Mr. Frugier?
There's some concern looking over past surveys and current surveys that the deck was added on and encroaches into the conservation easement area. You've stated that it's rotted and at some point it's going to have to be rebuilt. One of the conditions that we are considering is that you don't have to do it now, but when you do rebuild that deck, be cognizant of the conservation easement line and build a new deck in line with that conservation easement line, so there is no further encroachment.
Okay,
Okay?
Want to make a motion?
Okay. Anyone else have? Okay, so then I'll make a motion that we close this hearing and grant this request, subject to the condition I just outlined, that when the existing deck is rebuilt, it is rebuilt in compliance with the conservation easement.
okay. Just so I understand fully, that won't delay or prevent the issuance of my current application for a building permit for my garage extension?
It will not.
No.
Okay,
No.
okay.
As long as the garage extension doesn't,
No, it's on the other side of the house.
yeah, I don't,
Property, yeah.
it's all the way over there, okay.
Other corner, yes.
Okay, so then that's fine. That's my motion.
There's a motion by Mr. Frugieri to grant the application. The one condition is when you rebuild a deck that it not extend into conservation easement. I just want to state for the record that I think we're approving this encroachment is differentiating this for anybody else who might decide to clear their property, that this is an invasive species that was in there and there was a need to remove that. We're not creating a precedent here this evening by letting people go into a conservation easement and just remove things. Is there a second to that motion? Second by Mr. Bruno, all in favor?
Understood. I'll make sure my neighbors know that too.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
evening.
you.
Item 4 on the agenda, Colton Avenue LLC, care of Georgica Green Ventures LLC, northwest corner of Colton Avenue, County Route 17 and Brightside Avenue, through lot to Cordello Avenue, 1 and 29-31 Colton Avenue, 5 and 9 Railroad Avenue, 1 Cordello Avenue, Central Islip. Applicant requests a planning board special permit for a mixed-use building in the business district pursuant to 68-257.1G. Applicant also requests a partial waiver of the 30% commercial use requirement along with site plan modifications. Good evening to the applicant.
Good evening, board. For the applicant,
If we have those up here, I would ask you just turn that around because there are some speakers on this application so that they can see what you. Nope. There you go. Thank you.
David Gilmore and Greenberg, Troy, 2317 Montauk Highway, Bridgehampton. Tonight with me, I have TJ Wilkinson, who's our engineer, Sal Coca, who's our architect. There's Devin Kolka from Coca Development and Allison Giosa from Georgica Green. This application comes before the board as a result of a town-sponsored RFP. Colton Avenue LLC was chosen by the town as the preferred developer for this project, and Colton Avenue consists of Coca Development and Georgica Green Ventures, two well-known developers and builders capable of bringing this project to fruition. Ultimately, the project includes 6 different properties: 1, 2931 Carlton Avenue, 5 and 9 Railroad Avenue, and 1 Cordello Avenue. Properties are owned by the town, the county, and the Islip CDA. And I think the biggest challenge in this was getting everybody into contract with the same provisions in that contract. The parcel is 3.5 acres in size. Current zoning is business and industrial with the business zone controlling. And we are requesting approval for a mixed-use project which involves retail, mixed-income apartments, a community space for the residents of those apartments, and a public space. We have a plan up here, and I'll have our engineer, TJ Wilkinson, come up and run through the site plan for the board and the public.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. My name is TJ Wilkinson. I'm with Bowler Engineering, located at 275 Broad Hollow Road, Melville, New York. The proposed development will raise the existing property to construct a 3-story mixed-use building with 101,028 square feet of floor area. The building will have 7,676 square feet of commercial space on the ground floor along Carlton Avenue. The remainder of the building will contain 96 residential units. Commercial patrons will be able to access the site via an ingress-only driveway on Brightside Avenue in the rear of the commercial spaces. 20 parking stalls will be available in this area. 2-way access will be provided via the Railroad Avenue right-of-way, which runs north-south off of Brightside Avenue, then turns 90 degrees and runs east-west adjacent to our southern property line. Near the turning point of the road, a drop-off and pickup area is proposed for the residents to enter the building lobby. Railroad Avenue right-of-way will be constructed as part of our application with new curbs, pavement, and sidewalk. West and north of the building, another 182 parking stalls are proposed. In total, that will grant the site 208 parking stalls complying with town requirements. This includes 6 parallel stalls along Carlton Avenue in the right-of-way and 8 ADA accessible stalls on site. The driveway is proposed along Carlton Avenue north of the building for fire department access only. This will be conveyed via signage and a gate at the property line. Aerial fire apparatus access per New York State building code will be provided along the northern building wall. The Carlton Avenue frontage will be upgraded with new curb and sidewalk, creating a welcoming, walkable streetscape. There's currently a dedicated ingress lane for the northern municipal parking lot that will be closed and turned into additional sidewalk space. With these upgrades, 2 plaza areas will be created as well. One south of the building at the intersection of Carlton and Brightside, and the other is between the 2 commercial spaces where the buildings are connected on the 2nd and 3rd stories, but not on the 1st. The site will be upgraded with new curb, pavement, drainage, utilities, landscaping, and lighting. And I'll now open to any questions the board may have, and I also have our architect waiting to present as well.
Thank you. Anything further you want to present something? Now we don't know. This is Kelly.
Good evening, Salvatore Coco, B.D. Harvey Coco Architects, 1300 Waldwoman Road, Melville, New York. So a big part of the concern here is the activity along Carlton Avenue and reactivating that with commercial space. The reason that we only have we don't meet the 30% portion of this is because of the L-shaped building, and the building extends all the way to the rear, but the entire frontage along Carlton contains either commercial space, teatro, or amenity space. So we'll be completely reactivating this part of Carlton Avenue with the combination of these elements, as well as the plazas and the art walk in the middle, and that parking in the rear to Carlton Avenue. We think it's a great improvement. And one of the things that we've also done is introduced a lot of masonry to the facades, which is in keeping with the Carlton Avenue district, and really 3 different styles of architecture, 2 different types of brick, and really breaking down the facades and being more pedestrian friendly. The height is in compliance. We do have a variety of parapets and architectural features to break up the building as well. And that. Yeah.
So we are available for any questions that the board has. That's our
We'll
presentation.
go to public comment, staff report. We'll come back for questions. Mr. Brown?
Steve Bard.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members, and everyone else seated there. My name is Steve Bard. I'm a board member and president of an arts and social change organization called Teatro Experimental Yerba Bruja. Founded here in Central Islip, actually, beginnings in 2004 by a theater professional who brought her experimental theater company, the identical name, from Puerto Rico. Comes here, she lives here, and she still lives here. So this is the second component. We know this project is the affordable housing component of this project is a central element of the partially state-funded downtown Central Islip revitalization project. The other The other component that is of considerable importance for successful revitalization, both quality of life and especially economic opportunity, is arts, particularly performing arts. We know from just about every other community on Long Island that's successfully revitalizing that they have a performing arts facility there. You look at Patchogue, you look at well, so many other places. We understand that as part of the economics of this project, the developer was able to provide rent-free 750 square feet. Very nice to see teatro painted across the illustration there. That will do for your typical classes, workshops, open mics that organizations like ours take care of. But as for performing arts, we know we will need more than that 750. So we're going to have to wait for the market values to be established, and then ask ourselves, we need this. We need this to be sustainable. How much can we? How much more space can we pay for without risking sustainability of both ourselves and this arts facility? Especially performing arts. In performing arts, I'm talking theater, music, dance, as opposed to visual arts like statues and paintings. So we'll be proceeding to answer questions like that among ourselves and to work with the developer and to see whether we could really get big enough space, we could somehow finance big enough space for a facility that could really make an enormous difference to the success of the downtown Central Islip revitalization, and that would have things we can't possibly do in the space currently at play here. We're talking about a flexible.
I'm just going to ask you to wrap up, okay?
Yeah, flexible seating, flexible performance space, the kinds of things that nobody else on Long Island is doing. No one. And I hope that somehow we'll be able to develop that kind of financing because we just love to do that for the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan Pellegrino?
Good evening, Susan Pellegrino on behalf of the Central Islip Coalition of Good Neighbors. Quite frankly, I'm concerned that it's been a year since we've had the developers reach out to this community to reintroduce some of the, I guess, the changes they're proposing. And we just learned about this just yesterday. So I'm not even really familiar with what changes were being done. But I heard some language that I'm not sure if that's different than what the original plan that was presented to us over a year ago. And my understanding is that's supposed to be all affordable, and now I hear mixed income, and I don't know what that means because, I know what mixed income, but what exactly is that a departure from all affordable? It's a beautiful building. There's not a whole lot of green. So when you enter this corridor, and this, this development is a pivotal project for what is supposed to be a revitalization. And we know that the theater, I agree, if we can give more space to have that more attractive. I mean, this is key to this north side of Central Islip, which doesn't seem to be showing the signs of improvement that south of Smith Street does. In my personal opinion, we've created a two-tier, kind of two-class Central Islip. the new developments and then the pre-existing developments. So that's just my personal feeling, but we really would like them to reach out to the community, which I'm surprised they didn't do. And this is, you know, this is one of the largest revitalizations, not just on the island, but in New York State. So that's what we're asking. Again, the green space, it's right up to the road. When you're driving down this corridor, you've got, you know, brick on the right and brick on the left. And that's, you know, just not the most, appealing. So we ask that you reserve decision until they can really reach out to the community again and get some more feedback. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Haran?
Thank you. I'm a lifelong CI resident, 48 years in the fire department. Mackenzie Chemical was built in 1948, taken down in 1987. It was a small-time factory in my town. I know 30, 40 guys who work there. 35 of them are dead. 2 of them are alive. One's a good friend of mine. He's blind. And he'll tell you what the chemicals that they dumped to the ground. So I got all the government findings here. The last EPA was 2021, right? And so what I'm saying, that ground is unbuildable right there. And the apartments they want to put in there, traffic will be out of control. So I just want you to take that into consideration. I really don't think they can build on that property. I think you want to get it tested again. You know, there's 10 wells over there, and one of the wells is in the middle of the residential neighborhood, and it has the highest contents of cancer-causing agents. So I just want to put that out there, okay?
Thank you. Those are all the cards I have. Anybody else who came in wish to be heard on this application? Not seeing anyone, I'm going to come on up, and then please fill out a card afterwards.
Evening, guys. Megan Danzy, centralized up. My mother is also here. I'm sorry, what's your name? Yeah. To Susan's point, this quite honestly is ridiculous, not only from a traffic point of view. Carlton is one of the most voluminous, heavy traffic areas in our neighborhood, apart from Suffolk Avenue. It's hard to make a left-hand turn, hard to make a right-hand turn, and it's extremely dangerous. Adding this is just going to increase this tenfold. Wonderful that there's a teatro that is going to represent most of our neighborhood. It's very heavily El Salvadorian. But the most important thing is that you guys are continually redlining our neighborhood. This is going to be like 30% for mixed use. Our entire neighborhood is below middle class. And you continually do that just south of there, going over to Target. These are new developments that are for people with salaries that far exceed this neighborhood. I make six figures, and I can't even afford these establishments. Frankly, it's just not fair, and it's not a reflection of the population in this neighborhood. Wonderful, flexible space that we probably won't have access to because we'll have a whole amount of systems to go through to be able to use. Absurd, absurd. This is literally real estate colonization. What are we supposed to do? This is incredibly messed up. And at the root of this, it's just pure anti-black and brown. What are we going to do with this? What are we going to do? You guys are not actually revitalizing the downtown. You're going to put this here, beautiful, but then what the rest about the Carlton Avenue? In contrast to Suffolk Avenue, in contrast to Wheeler Avenue, it's very clear what these establishments are meant to serve. It's for rich white people and nobody else from our neighborhood. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Anybody else wish to be heard on the application? Not seeing anyone.
Mr. Chairman, I think it'd be appropriate if I called up Devin Kolka, who can talk to the availability of these apartments, which I think were
I'm
misunderstood.
going to come back to that as part of my questions. I wrote down the question, so let me have Ms. Wozniak do a report, and then I'm going to ask you to answer those questions that were asked by the members of the community, so.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The property is the site of the former Central Islip Railroad Station in downtown Central Islip and is the culmination of contiguous properties that have been acquired from the Central Islip Civic Council, Town of Islip, and the Suffolk County Land Bank. The project is one of the New York State Downtown Revitalization Initiative DRI grant recipients and will act as a gateway project to the revitalization of the Colton Avenue corridor. The project proposes a 3-story mixed-use building with 96 affordable apartment units and 2 public plaza spaces. The commercial portion of the project fronts Carlton Avenue and will have office space for the CI Civic Council and Teatro, a local performing arts community group, in addition to other retail space for future tenants. The apartment units are a mix of studio, 1-bedroom, and 2-bedroom units, with 1-bedroom units making up the majority of the building. The public plaza spaces will feature artwork and provide outdoor seating space. The project will also provide much-needed public parking to support the local businesses along Carlton Avenue. As a result of the unique shape and number of street frontages, the project will require some relaxations from this board, which includes a 44% overall landscaping relaxation, 32% front yard relaxation, 10-foot buffer relaxation to the Long Island Railroad, a 20-foot buffer relaxation adjacent to 3 single-family homes, and a drive aisle width relaxation for the angled parking area. This is in addition to a waiver of the 30% commercial component requirement for mixed-use buildings. The applicant is providing about 7%. The applicant has also provided a draft traffic impact study that concluded the development will cause traffic impacts for the eastbound left-right turn movements from Brightside Avenue to northbound and southbound Carlton Avenue during the weekday AM, weekday PM, and Saturday midday peak hours. In order to mitigate this, the study does propose a light at the intersection of Brightside Avenue and Carlton Avenue. However, this light is yet to be approved by the county. The project is one of the top 3 recipients of the DRI funding, along with sewer construction and pedestrian improvements. Overall, the proposed development is consistent with the goals and intentions for the Central Islip downtown area and will provide many public benefits such as the parking and plaza areas. In addition, it will redevelop blighted parcels and provide mixed-use development in an ideal location near mass transit. The applicant should provide preliminary approval from the county for the proposed light, as the traffic study does recommend, and should also provide mitigation measures for the reduced buffer area adjacent to the residential homes, such as a decorative sound fence. Based on this, planning recommends the board reserve decision in order to obtain traffic comments and allow the applicant time to provide county approval for the light and address any other comments we heard tonight.
Applicant?
Hi, Devin Kolka, CEO of the Kolka Group, 175 Commerce Drive, Hauppauge. Gonna just talk on the community outreach. First off, thank you to the chairman and the board for hearing us tonight. We have met with the Central Islip Civic Association and the Central Islip Coalition. I apologize if we haven't met recently. The project has not significantly changed when it comes to amount of units, retail component, theater, etc. We were trying to avoid going and getting a variance, and so we had scaled back certain components of the project so that we were only going for relaxations. Been working with, or I talk a lot with Debbie Kavanaugh, who is very much involved in the coalition, and we were at a press conference less than a month ago for this property. Happy to sit with anybody and talk about the project further. Furthermore, you know, I walked, right side 2 weeks ago, knocked on every door for all of the adjacent property owners to the site. Got 2 support letters out of it. Didn't have anybody who spoke up against it. felt like the community was very happy at that point. But like we said, we're a transparent, open group, and we're happy to sit and talk about the development with anybody.
Good evening. My name is Allison Giosa. I am the Vice President of Development for Georgia Green Ventures, 50 Jericho Quadrangle in Jericho, New York, 11753. Just to add to what Devin had said about the community outreach, we really do want to be good neighbors. We are developers, we are general contractors, and we're also property managers. So we're not just developing and we're leaving. I live in the town of Islip. This is also my community and care very deeply for this project. So we want to make sure that this is a good project. We're going to remain on site. As you've seen in the plans, we have an on-site property management office. We will have an on-site super. We are actually going to be here in Central Islip. I would like to address the affordability. This is one thing that since the DRI started many, many years ago, that it was looked at as a mixed income development, that this would kind of be a home for a lot of different people of a lot of different backgrounds. The financing of the project does fluctuate, but I could tell you that this project and what we've seen as our most successful projects have multiple levels of income tiers. This project in particular has 5, ranging from 30, 50, 60, 70, and 80% of the AMI. We find having a lot of different levels is a really good mix for a really good downtown revitalization. That serves income levels. You would qualify for an apartment making $33,000 a year, all the way up at the maximum of $110,000 to $120,000 a year. So I do think that there is levels of deep affordability. There is, many different levels that hopefully we're not leaving anybody out of this development. And I would love to talk further with the community and make sure that everyone feels that this is an inclusive project, because it's been a project with a lot of community input over a lot of different years. So we want to make sure that we get this right.
Just want to add to that. It's 100% affordable. So at each AMI level, the project is 100% affordable project.
I know that it was touched upon in the report a little bit, but we are aware of some traffic mitigation that may be necessary. We are going to look into adding a traffic light on Brightside and Carlton. So we're working through that signal warrant analysis right now. And the last item I did want to touch on was the environmental statement. On 1 Cordello, I believe he was referring to, over the past year of, purchase and sale contracts and getting everything together and finally submitting for our financing. We also did a lot of environmental reports and environmental testing. And as a result of that, there is no remediation required. That site was fully remediated according to EPA in 2020. And the building, though, will take extra precautions and will have a vapor barrier and a sub-slab depressurization system built into it, just in case of any type of vapor that might be migrating from any off-site source. I think that was it. Any further questions?
Yeah, this is more of a clarification than a question for you, Ms. The standard definition of affordable housing is 80% of AMI. You mentioned ranges from 30% to 70%?
To 80, sorry.
80%,
yes.
Okay. So that's all less than the standard definition of affordable housing?
Yes.
30% especially is, so your entire project is affordable?
Completely affordable.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Cruz?
It wasn't. Can you hear me? Okay, well, I have a couple of questions. First, I don't see the renderings for the building in the back, the apartments. So I don't see a lot of greenery for this parking lot that we have. Yeah, that just looks like a lot of parking spaces. I don't see.
It is, yeah.
And I don't see like the neighbors in the back, any improvement to their property to what they're gonna see. Now that, I just feel like I don't see an improvement in that sense. I don't know if this building needs to be this big, with these apartments. I'll give you one of the good positives that would like is the theater. I think that kind of brings a little bit more of what we were looking for a downtown feel, for being able to come out with our families and do family things. And, to almost, I know, I like to compare it to Patchogue, to, even Huntington, where they have a little downtown, where they have restaurants, where they have a little theater, where you can go out with your family and enjoy those things without having it to be just laundromat, and delis. But I like the idea of the theater. I think that's a great new addition for the downtown. But as far as the apartments, I think there's something to be said about adding more green, maybe improving the way the looks on the back of those homes. I don't know if there's area for improvement there, to maybe add some sort of buffer or trees or walkway. I don't know. And definitely the traffic on Carlton Avenue to make a left is going to be impossible. That light changes like that. I think maybe 2 cars at most can make a left onto Suffolk Avenue. So I think that needs to be really, really looked into. And the building itself, may need some improvement. I don't know. I'm not really crazy about it right now. Yeah.
So on the green comment, there isn't a lot of green shown here, but something that isn't shown in green that is a really big part of this, and maybe a better rendering of kind of what we're picturing would help with this scenario. But there is going to be a plaza area, which is over 2,000 square feet on the corner of Brightside and Carlton, which we're going to be improving with benches, greenery, and we do have some buffer along the neighbors on Brightside over there. And there is going to be a second plaza next to the Teatro space. So this is where Teatro is going to be. Over here opens out to another plaza that they can kind of use that space as like a flex space, with that kind of still art that Steve had mentioned, but also the performing arts being able to open up to that space. And then the larger vision is that is a breezeway in between the 2 buildings that can open to that smaller parking lot, can get closed down for like little craft fairs, farmers markets, food trucks, little events that we could host in that space.
That would be behind people's yard. Like, I don't want to have, if I live in those 3 houses, I don't want to see a market and people back there in my backyard. Or, that's great if you had a great buffer, if you had more green space, but I don't want cars in my backyard and then a market in my backyard. It's just, maybe on the other side you could have done it. I don't know. It's a great idea. I want it because that's what we're looking for in a downtown, but I don't know if that works with 3 neighbors there and with no green space.
It is a funky site. It is very, very long and narrow. We had to have certain considerations for fire access. So there is, room to obviously make improvements and try to add some more green space here. I think that a better illustration of those plaza areas will also help, because we do want to keep Carlton. Carlton is really the area that we're trying to activate. So, wider sidewalks, streetscape improvements. We have the new sewer that's coming down Carlton now. It's going to really bring life to the area, new retail opportunities. But we'll definitely take a look at that.
Mr. Brown?
Mr. Bard, can I ask you a question? I had read your letter, if I understand it, the theater space is only 750 square feet?
Go ahead.
Okay, now, could you repeat that?
It's 750 square feet?
750 square, right? That's what we're told, yeah. I'm waiting for the architect's diagram, but I have no doubt that it's accurate.
In a 101,000 square foot building?
Well, I can only speculate. No, I can only speculate. I mean, sure, I could stand up here and yell and wave. Oh, we should have more. And indeed,
Well, that's
for
what
this to work best for the corridor there, a larger facility is important. But I'm sure their economics. I feel confident in this organization. That's why
I can
I'm not
understand that.
I'm not conflicting with them.
I actually very much appreciate that, but if the concept of here is revitalization and the community and obviously Ms. Cruz here also believes that the theater is part of that revitalization, I have difficulty believing that a space just slightly bigger than my garage will in fact do that. So I just wanted to make sure I understood the numbers that are going on.
Oh, very,
here.
very much
I'm
so.
sure the developer is understanding what I am saying.
Absolutely. We have had a lot of communication on this, and we know what that space means to the limited extent to which services can be provided. But to me, that means who else is going to step up and help finance sustainably? How much can we comfortably add to that footage without feeling that we're putting our sustainability at risk? And beyond that, and we're going to retain a performing space design expert to help make sure the numbers we're calculating are correct, by the way. And then we'll look at what would we really need to have a terrific a space flexible with seating.
I'm not concerned about your use of the space. I have difficulty believing that you will be able to function very well in a space of that limited size.
I hear you.
That's the point I'm making, which since the developer is here explaining to us the community benefits of this project. I'm saying that I want to know for sure that those community benefits will be realized and that they are not just something that somebody stuck on with a little thumbtack on a very small piece on a very large project.
Well, I imagine what will now happen during the coming months before a decision is made by the board. And if approved in some format with or without modification, it then goes to your department, your techies.
No, I just wanted to understand that what I've read is accurate.
You are correct. That's why we need to see how much additional space can be obtained without crashing our organization.
Thank you.
Any further, Mr. Brewer?
No.
Anything further from the applicant?
I just want to add the complexity of financing a 100% affordable housing project. They don't really cash well on the back end. So we're happy to work with Teatro and give him free space. And I think it's actually space that's larger than what they're occupying right now in Bayshore. But it's complicated when you have different pots of financing that you're trying to pull in to make a project like this feasible.
And I certainly understand the financing aspects of it. You're going down to 30-some%. It's a big number. But I do agree with the point of Ms. Cruz. More green space in some way, shape, or form would be nice. I mean, it's a downtown, but you're also up against a lot of single-family residences.
We will certainly look at that and try to add green space where we can. I spoke with all 9 of the bright side. Actually, I knocked on 9 of the doors. I spoke with 7 of the people that are living there and got 2 support letters of the 9 houses. So we really did outreach to those that are most affected. But happy to continue the conversations with them for sure.
Or just come back with some more green space for us. And I would just ask the other, Ms. Pellegrino, was it, the coalition, just point out to her what the changes on differences are. It's been a year to make sure that she's aware of that. Did the applicant want to add anything further?
I just want to say, we're saying that that space is in the parking lot. The space is on this side. That's this is the space you're protecting, Colton Avenue side, not the back side. Or the public plaza. That's on the front of the street. Residents on the back side.
You might go.
Oh, there's another one on the corner.
I know.
There's one in the center. This pedestrian.
You're good. Anything further from the applicant? Is there a motion? Ms. Frugieri?
Yeah, first I'd like to commend you for bringing a fully affordable project to this board. I think this is the first time that I've been sitting on this board or any other board that I sat on where I saw the threshold as low as 30%. So I commend you for that. That's a truly affordable project. With that, there's obviously some tweaking that need to be done. So I'll make a motion that we close this public hearing and reserve decision.
Motion by Ms. Frugieri to close the public hearing and reserve decision. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Brown. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions were reserved. Thank you. Tully Environmental, Inc., DBA Clearbrook by David Galbraith, north side of Green Street, 15 Green Street and south side of Essex Street, 30 Essex Street, through lot to Denver Avenue, Bayshore. Applicant requests to change the zone from Industrial 1 District to Industrial 2 District, and a modification of covenants and restrictions associated with TC 4468 and a planning board special permit for a transfer station pursuant to 68-356.1A. Site plan modifications may be required as part of this application. Application number CZ 2023-017.
For the applicant, David Gilmartin, law firm Greenberg Trog, 2317 Montauk Highway, Bridgehampton. Here representing Tully Environmental in connection with this application. And the proposed development, again, comes to you from another town RFP where they put parcel property up for sale, and Tully Environmental won that sale. It is anticipated that it will be used in connection with an existing transfer station. However, there will be no increase in the effluent that's brought to the site as a result of the increase. The increase will have a warehouse, it will have office. So again, I think it's important to know from the outset that there won't be any increase in the matter brought to the site. The existing site consists of 2 parcels. One is in the I-2, the other one was rezoned to I-1. And the lot that the owner, Tully, bought from the town is in an I-1. Everything was in an I-2 after the RFP was done and Tully bought the property. 2 of the lots were switched to the I-1. So that's why we're asking for the change in zone from I-1 to I-2. I think it's important to note that this project is going to result in consolidating Tully's operations. Again, no increase in waste brought to the site. Your master plan calls for this to be industrial 2, which sort of runs in the face of the zoning change to the I-1. And again, there's going to be a light repair shop for some of the equipment, a warehouse, and office space. We're also going to require some minor waivers, special permit to operate a transfer station on site, an amendment to some existing covenants. I have David Galbraith here who can run through the plan with you and describe the operations. But again, it's a separate site and it won't increase operations on the site.
Good evening, board members. Dave Galbraith, Tully Environmental. Yeah, so the application is to be able to take the property that we worked with the town of Islip for an RFP. And simply, we just want to put up a building that's going to hold administrative. We're going to do some light repairs on the equipment, and then have some light warehouse. So the impact of the remaining facility that's presently in operation and has been in operation will not change at all.
Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
I just have one question, because the word transfer station is a very broad term. Can you define what you see as a transfer station at this location?
So we're a receiver of liquid waste. That waste comes in. That waste is sanitary liquid waste that's picked up in Suffolk County. It's brought into our facility. It's offloaded into the facility. The facility processes that waste, and then ultimately we discharge the effluent to a pipe that's secured by Suffolk County into the sewer.
So these are like the porta potties that are out there, you're bringing those in and emptying those, or are there trucks?
This all comes in a sealed vessel. Right, in a sealed truck.
It all comes in like the trucks that go to Bergen.
Right. We are basically a mini Bergen plant, servicing, the local communities.
And how many trucks per day do you envision coming into your site?
Well, we're presently been operating since 2018. So on an average, it can fluctuate. We're 7 days a week. We can have anywhere from 10 trucks in a day to probably upwards of 15 to 16 trucks. These trucks hold anywhere from 3,000 gallons to the largest vehicle, which would hold 7,000 gallons in a trailer.
Then as far as permitting, you're fully permitted by the Suffolk County?
Fully permitted by DEC, Suffolk County, and the town of Islip.
All right, thank you.
Anything further in your presentation? Want to go to public comment, staff report, then we'll come back to the questions.
Yeah. Stephen Fleischer?
Hello, board. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Stephen Fleischer. I own Fleischer Tube Distributors. We're a metal supply house on Herkimer, the next block over. Also a building on Chicago Avenue that goes between Herkimer and Green Street. Now, my big concern is when we moved in there 50 years ago, we've been there. They're very short streets, very narrow streets, and the reason they're small and the reason they're short is because when we first built 50 years ago, the area past our building heading west was considered to be wetlands, and you didn't want anything built after a certain point. But then, the thinking of the town was to allow these streets to go ever further east, and they've been built up on fill, and now you have what's going on now, but that doesn't change that. On north of Sunrise, you've got a big wetland area. Between us and Oakwood, there is a wetland area. I don't know what's going on with it. I don't know if there's ever been any environmental impact to see what having this transportation of cesspool trucks that come in and out are doing and affecting. Those trucks are sometimes 40-foot tanker trucks, so I guess there's about 40,000-pound trucks. Herkimer Street's never been paved in 50 years. Green Street, when it was initially made, that's the paving on that. These are heavy, heavy trucks that are using these small, tight streets. these small streets, these tight streets have people parking along it. Sometimes these guys are coming out pretty quickly for reasons unknown. They're coming into down past Chicago at a rapid rate, turning out, sometimes parking and staying there, I guess, to reacclimate themselves that they've been pumped out or waiting for their turn. I don't know. Today, 4:30, end of the day, it smelled pretty obviously. It happens all the time over there. I mean, one business dominating these other, everybody else who lives there on Saxon Avenue. Those houses have been residential there before we came. And there's been buildings there that have been there for so long. We're all trying to work, and we're all contained inside our own buildings. And this one building this one business dominates the area through the smells that come out of it from being a transfer station so close to residents, so close to businesses that we've been doing for 50 years, at least at my place. And it just has an effect of, why would I want to work and live in this area with such such intoxicating odors coming from it on a consistent basis? It's difficult to be there at times, and it's a long future ahead of us, and we want to continue to be there as we have been, and as time goes on, attract good businesses that feel that this is a place that they can all work and have a place to stay. We're all contained in Industrial One over there, and I'd like to see it to remain that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris Candiano?
Thank you. I'm Chris Candiano, president of Destination Unknown Beer Company. We are at 1 South Chicago Avenue. Like Mr. Fleischer said, I'm a tenant of his. We've been there since 2014. We operate a craft brewery. We also have retail space. Mr. Galbraith mentioned he took it over in 2018. When I got there in 2014, it was operated by Aparo, and I'm not sure the quantities of liquid they were treating, but I can say between 2014 when he took over 2018, it seems like he's transporting at least tenfold what was put in. So I'm concerned about also the environmental impact, the traffic safety concern. We operate a retail business, usually from 4 to 8 or 9 during the week, noon on the weekends. We have people there. It's a transfer facility. It smells, and it's been an ongoing issue. We made some complaints in the past when we were working at Aparo. They were a lot more accommodating. They had shorter hours and just a lot less traffic. So I'm concerned for the safety and well-being of my staff. We have 5 full-time staff that work in that facility, and we have the public. We've all been there on a bad day, working, when the public's been there trying to enjoy themselves. During COVID, the SLA graciously granted us extra outdoor space to comply with all those regulations. Most days, people didn't want to be out there. So it's negatively affecting my business. It makes it hard to do business. Besides Mr. Fleischer, he owns a steel company, so you can imagine he gets large deliveries on large trucks. These large tanker trucks are coming in and out. Right next door to this facility is a Cisco facility where they're processing food. So I'm concerned about, not only the health and safety of me and my customers, but everybody else trying to operate in that area. To Mr. Fleischer's point, the additional traffic has made the roads of Herkimer Green, Chicago, like driving through Beirut. It's a super heavily trafficked area, and just trying to voice my concerns.
Thank you.
I also have a petition from about 100 of my customers. We just got note of this on Friday. So I asked them to voice their opinions, and I have their petition as well.
You submit it over there. We'll make that part of the record. Thank you. Those are the only cards we have. Anybody else wish to be heard on this application? Not seeing anyone, I'm going to turn to Mr. Colgan for a report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This application proposes the expansion of an existing transfer station on currently vacant land. Prior to this, the improved property was the subject of a change of zone in order to allow for the outdoor storage of cesspool equipment in Industrial 2 District back in 1998. The Industrial 2 District is generally preferred in areas buffered by other Industrial 1 properties and away from main thoroughfares. Master plan for this area suggests Industrial 2 could be considered. There are several Industrial 2 properties in the vicinity of the subject parcel. The conceptual site plan shows compliance with landscaping and parking. There are freshwater wetlands to the west, of which the proposed improvements are set back 100 feet. The staff did receive an email complaining about the owners emanating from the site, as well as two folks from the public who spoke this evening. So based on that, the staff would recommend that the board reserve decision to review this issue with the applicant and see how it might be addressed.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Yes, for the applicant. Obviously, the two speakers had both mentioned that there's an odor in the neighborhood, and you bring the trucks into the station and then you empty the tankers. Is that done outside? Is it done
Inside.
inside the facility? Is there anything that you have that is there to control the odor?
Right, so we, underneath the DEC guidelines in which we operate, we have a carbon filter system that's installed and it's inside the facility. And then we also installed outside on either end of the north side and south side of the property. We installed odor control that goes on every day. This facility has been operating as was stated. We purchased this facility from Frank Apparel. This facility's been operating in that in that area for quite some time. Yes, the trucks, we have Cisco tractor trailer every morning making deliveries. Fletcher is getting deliveries from tractor trailers on his steel.
But I'm just speaking to the questions that we had in reference to odor. So you have a 40-foot tanker that comes in, that can fit inside inside?
Correct.
Doors are closed?
Correct.
And there's a filtration system that's there in
Correct.
place. All right.
Can I ask you, you said you have odor control in place. I mean, have you been to the site? Is there an odor that affects the nearby businesses?
I work there.
So
Yeah.
that's questions for
Yeah,
you.
our administrative offices are inside, the dispatch offices are inside. We have 60 people that operate out of that facility. Yes.
If I went over there tomorrow and met the people who spoke, it'll smell fine in the neighborhood?
Come on over.
And just to the trucks on the street, Sean, is there, in terms of they're currently using the street, are there problems with the trucks on that street? Can the street support what's going on there now for all the businesses?
I mean, I can't speak to the design of the street because it's not my duties here, but I will note that Essex Street is a dedicated road, which means the town would have only accepted it if it met certain engineering standards. And Green Street up to approximately was at, I think it was Chicago Avenue, but it's since been abandoned. That's also a dedicated roadway. So Green Street in front of the subject property is not dedicated. When they go through site plan review, the engineering division will ensure that the parking lot, the drive aisles, the side access will be able to withstand, truck traffic.
Ms. Cruz, did you?
No, my question was about the odor. If there was any way, other ways to maybe mitigate that smell, other than adding maybe more or plantings? I'm trying to figure out what other ways can be added besides what you already have.
Well, we certainly we continue to look at, and we want to be a good neighbor in the area. Absolutely. Our proposal of what we're doing right now, again, is not increasing anything in the operation. We're abiding by the wetlands in the property that we purchased off of the town. We're going to be creating some green area in that once we do that design work with that. But as far as the facility and the operations of the facility, it's the same process that's been going on prior to Tully Environmental purchasing this piece.
Mr. Frugieri?
I see on your site plan, you have some proposed new warehouse space.
Right.
So even after that new warehouse space is constructed, you're still going to be, discharging the waste the same way you always did and the same way Aparo always did.
Correct.
So there's nothing new that you're proposing in this development that would, deal with the odor and the liquid waste?
No, what we're proposing is to move administrative and to make a warehouse and.
Move your administrative away from the smell,
No, no. It's adding on the administrative.
adding on to the administrative. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was wondering if during all of this development, because technologies have changed
Mhm.
since Aparo had the building and,
Mhm.
you know, up until now, and maybe there's some new technologies that could be incorporated into your buildings as part of these improvements that would mitigate the smell.
So the carbon filter system that was installed in our facility is just one of those items. That was not installed in the facility when we had purchased the facility from, and we worked with the DEC on that. We were not asked by the DEC. That's a choice that we decided to put into the building.
Okay.
Further questions from the board? Anything further from the applicant?
No, sir. Thank you.
So I think we're going to reserve decision tonight. I'd like to hear back from you in terms of odor control, if there are other things you can do, as Mr. Frugieri said, with new technologies, or Mr. Cruz. I'm not an expert in odor control, but obviously the issue's been raised. I'm probably will take a ride out there and get my firsthand impression of it. So that would be one issue I'd like
Look
to
at it.
address. Thank you.
Call you when they should come.
If you have a recommended time, let Wendy know when time of the day and what day of the week that is, and I'll make note of that to stop by. Is there a motion? Mr. Rajari.
I'll make motion that we close this public hearing and reserve decision on this application.
There's a motion to close the public hearing and reserve decision. Second by Mr. Rajari, second by Mr. Brown. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, we're reserved. Thank you. And honestly, if there's a better time, just let Wendy know, and that'll be the time I stop by. Next item on the agenda, Lily Oberman, Kimberly Horn, SP 2022-061, southwest corner of Sunrise Highway, Service Road, State Route 27 and Broadway Avenue, Sayville, 5750 Sunrise Highway. Applicant requests a parking relaxation in connection with the creation of additional drive-up stalls to an existing target. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Case Lieberman with Kimberly Horn, and I'm here as Target's civil engineering consultant.
You want to go right to staff?
Yeah, I can go right into it.
Presentation like that all the time.
So I am proposing a parking relaxation of, what percent even is it?
You want me to have Town, why don't I have Town do the presentation? We'll come back to you.
Okay, go ahead.
Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a business 3 zone, 12-acre parcel, currently the location of Sayville Target. Target over the past few years, as well as countless other retail corporations, have implemented drive-up parking stalls on their properties. These are regular parking stalls, however, are utilized for customers who order items ahead of time online or through the store app and can wait in a designated stall for an employee to bring the order out to their car. It is becoming a standard for the industry. These stalls allow for quicker turnover of parking stalls as they are faster transactions than customer parking and walking into the store. In order to accommodate these areas, stalls must be restriped, signs installed, and in doing so, these particular property is losing about 16 parking stalls. The original TC, which is 5106 for the Target, granted just under a 19% parking relaxation to allow the current 676 stalls provided. Overall, for the property, 832 stalls are required and now 660 are being provided. So that's a little over 20% parking relaxation. And that also includes 116 land bank parking stalls that are currently on the site. No parking issues have been identified on the site currently, as there's ample parking available. And based on that, staff recommends the board grant the application subject to the attached conditions.
Do you want to add anything to that, or have us just?
Nope, perfect.
Good, right? Are there any questions? Is there a motion? Mr. Brown?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to grant the application subject to Tanner's staff report.
There's a motion by Mr. Brown to grant the application, subject to the conditions. There's a second. Second by Mr. Bruno. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, the application is granted. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Major subdivision preliminary approval, Darrell Meyer Estates, MS 2021-002, southerly terminus of Chestnut Avenue, 340 feet south of Lexington Avenue, Holbrook, 1613 Coates Avenue. Applicant requests preliminary approval for a 5-lot major subdivision, 4 new dwellings. Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Bruno will recuse on this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This application was last heard in May of 2022 for preliminary approval, and decision was reserved. I'm actually going to pass out quickly, just so you can see. These are 11 by 17s of the new layout, which you probably have seen already. The original proposal proposed an extension of the existing cul-de-sac from Chestnut Avenue, which is to the north, adjacent to this property. After research into that right-of-way, this property could not obtain access rights. Now the proposal has a new road being constructed off of Coates Avenue, 4 new dwellings in addition to the existing dwelling to remain on the corner lot. The only deficiency is the applicant is not providing the full 25% natural area per the subdivision and land development regulations, so they would be subject to a $5 per square foot fee as part of any final approval. Minor items on the plan will need to be revised, then ultimately the development plan must be approved by the town engineer. Afterwards, the application can be brought back to the planning board for final approval. So based on the above, staff recommends the board grant preliminary approval, subject to the subdivision and land development regulations and development plan approval by the town engineer.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Gonzalez? Not seeing any. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Brown.
I would like a motion to grant the application based on tenant's staff report.
Motion to grant the application, subject to town and staff report. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Cruz. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions, the application is granted. And I would just like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Bruno for his years of service to the residents of the town of Islip on the planning board, as he will be leaving us for different pasture to go enjoy his grandchild. And we'll be looking for a invite to come down when you get that boat on that water over there to go out with you. But on behalf of everyone in the town of Islip, thank you for your service. We appreciate that, and we will miss you.
It has been a pleasure. I'll second that motion.
All in favor? There's nobody opposed. You're in good shape.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to close the meeting.
Motion by Mr. Brown to adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Ridgell in favor, opposed, abstentions. We are officially adjourned.
Thank you, Gary.
Gary, keep in touch.
Lackluster
Your stains right on the last. Yeah, you.
Speakers all have, it's still live.